This week's word of the week is an obscure derivative of the stative verb eimi, I am. Let's take a look. So, eimi, I am, leads us to the participle form, hoon, the one who is. In the Septuagint, this is frequently used as a name for God. Within the Hebrew tradition, within Judaism, hoon is a Greek name for God, the one who is. Remember in Exodus when God describes himself as I am that I am? That moves us into the one that is, the one who is. And from that participle, we get today's word of the week, ontos, which is an adverb that we use to say something is truly or really or genuinely something, or someone is this indeed. So the adverb ontos functions like our English words really, genuinely, or truly. A few weeks ago, we had a word of the week, aletheia. That word was truth. And we said, what is truth? Right? Pontius Pilate asks Jesus, what is truth? And we looked at that word and saw that truth is the reality of a situation, a circumstance as it is, without leaving anything out, without adding anything to it, without spinning it, coloring it, or changing it to further an agenda. That's what we said aletheia, truth was. How is ontos related? The big difference is aletheia has more to do with what you say or do, or a fact pattern or an issue, whereas ontos has to do with your being. Remember, it comes out of the word eimi, I am, comes out of the participle hoon, the one who is. Ontos is how you really genuinely are. It's the reality of your being. So let's take a look at a couple of adverbial uses, but before that, let me reference one more thing about ontos. We get the philosophical term ontology from ontos, and ontology is the study of being, of nature, of the essence of things. So if I do an ontological study of an apple, I will come to understand the species and relation of that tree to other trees, and the nature of that fruit and its use for passing on the seed for reproduction, and the chemical makeup of the sugars that I taste, the fructose when I bite into the apple, and the pectins and all these other things. The reality of what the apple is ontology, right? And so part of that reality may be that worms infest apples, but worms are not the reality of the apple, right? Because they don't come as a part of the apple, they're a parasite, an invader. So let's move on. Let's look at our adverbial uses of ontos. We'll start with Luke chapter 23, verse 47. Now when the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God, saying, certainly this man was innocent. Let's take a look at what he said in Koine. Ontos ho anthropos hutos dikaios ein. So adverbs obviously modify verbs, and the verb in this sentence is ein, right? So it's an imperfect, indicative, third person singular. He, she, or it was. He, she, or it is talking about who in this case? It's talking about ho anthropos hutos, this man. And what do we know about him? We know that this man was ontos, certainly, surely, definitely, indeed, dikaios, just, innocent. So the centurion sees what happens in the crucifixion of Christ, and he says, surely, certainly, this man that they've done this to was just, innocent, righteous, not guilty of what he's just been killed for. So it's the innocence of his being. He's not talking about the criminal charges. He's not talking about the forensic evidence. He looks at what takes place with Jesus on the cross and he says, this man is certainly innocent or just. He's talking about Christ's being. not his doing, his being. Let's go on and take a look at the second one. This comes from John chapter 8, verse 36, where we read, "So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." And indeed here is our word of the week, ontos. So the phrase in question, ontos eleutheroi esesthe. Esesthe is future indicative plural, second person plural verb, you shall be. What shall they be? They shall be indeed ontos eleutheroi, free men, free people. Not just free in the sense of the law, not free in the sense of a debt, not free in the sense of the oppressive Romans who are occupying the Holy Land will be gone, not free in a technical sense, but in an intrinsic being sense. If the Son sets you free, you people will be, again using the stative verb, esesthe is a form of me, just like ain in the previous one was a form of me, modified by this form of me, ontos. You will be in your essence free people, not encumbered. Pretty awesome stuff. Next, we're going to look at an attributive use of this adverb. And this comes to us from 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 3, where it says, "Honor widows who are truly widows." And the word truly here is our word of the week, ontos. Honor widows who are truly widows. Well, before we go on, let's dive into history a little bit. If you were a part of that culture in the first century and you were widowed, you were in a terrible predicament unless you had a close surviving relative of your deceased husband who would marry you, a levirate marriage it's called, take you into the family and make sure you were cared for, provided for, or unless you had surviving sons or grandsons who would choose to take you in and look after you. Daughters were of no value to you because they were off with their husbands in a new family, in a different family. So if you were widowed and you didn't have those male relatives nearby to take care of you, you were in a dire predicament. And particularly if you were a widow who didn't have those children or a brother-in-law and you happen to be older to the point where you aren't really of marriable age anymore, your situation could be life and death. And so here, writing to Timothy, Paul instructs, honor the widows who are truly widows. And in the next verse, he explicitly says, I'm not talking about the ones who have sons around who can look after them. I'm talking about the widows who are truly ontos widows, genuinely widows. So not the ones who are widow in the technical sense that their husband is deceased, not the ones who are widowed in title, but the ones who are widowed in essence, who have no prospects, who have no hope, who have no home, who have no sustenance, who have no future, who are looking at a hopeless, destitute existence until they die. Honor those widows who are really, essentially, ontologically in their being widows. Not a widow whose husband died but is doing fine because she's living with her successful and wealthy son, or who married her brother-in-law and is now his second wife and is cared for and fed and is fine. They're taken care of. You take care of the ones who aren't taken care of, the ones who are truly widows. See the difference? Powerful stuff. So ontos tells us what a thing is in its essential reality, not what it isn't, but what it is, what it genuinely is. You can be a widow and not be in dire circumstances, is what Paul is getting at. Honor the widows who are in dire circumstances. Look after them. Make sure they're taken care of. That's what constitutes your essential being, not the title, but the reality. Aristotle had a fantastic formula. You may have heard of it. It's called the Aristotelian formulae. And in Greek, he said, alpha esti alpha. We would translate that, A is A. A thing is what it is. That's tautology at its heart, right? A thing is what it is. And by extension, therefore, it can't be what it isn't. Now, a thing can be many things at once, but what it can't be is a thing that contradicts itself. So, for instance, I'm a human, I'm a person, I'm a man, I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, I'm a nephew, and I'm an uncle. I'm all those things. I am a jet plane. No, I'm not a jet plane. Why? Because jet planes are things that are built, designed and built by groups of people. As a person, I could be a part of a group that builds a jet plane, but I can't be a person and a jet plane. Or to break away from the inanimate objects, what if I were to say I'm a penguin? Well, I can be a penguin and be a father and be a son and be a grandfather and be a brother, but I can't be a human because humans and penguins are not the same species. That's a contradiction. And alpha esti alpha, A is A, doesn't allow for contradictions that make me something that I'm not, right? So I can be a husband and a father and a human. I can be a son and a nephew and an uncle and a human. I can be a son, a nephew, an uncle, and a penguin, but I can't be a penguin and a human because A is A. And if the categories contradict, then they can't be a part of the same thing. Ontology, ontos. Our word of the week comes from the participle form, hoon, the one who is, comes from me, I am. It's all about being. And to quote the famous sailor, I am what I am, and that's all that I am. Ontos, our word of the week. Hope that was good for you. Till next time, Kars Kairene Humin, grace and peace to you.